This is the Sabbath School lesson for the fourth quarter, 2021.
Lesson 6 from our series Present Truth in Deuteronomy is titled, For What Nation Is There So Great? Ready for teaching on November 6, and I'm Percy Harrold. Friday, November 5. From the very beginning of the great controversy in heaven, it has been Satan's purpose to overthrow the law of God, writes Ellen White in The Great Controversy, page 582. She continues, it was to accomplish this that he entered upon his rebellion against the Creator, and though he was cast out of heaven, he has continued the same warfare upon the earth. To deceive men and thus lead them to transgress God's law is the object which he has steadfastly pursued. Whether this be accomplished by casting aside the law altogether or by rejecting one of its precepts, the result will be ultimately the same. He that offends in one point manifests contempt for the whole law. His influence and example are on the side of transgression. He becomes guilty of all, as it says in James 2:12. End of quote. Concerning Baal Peor, Ellen White wrote in Patriarchs and Prophets, page 454, They ventured upon the forbidden ground and were entangled in the snare of Satan. Beguiled with music and dancing and allured by the beauty of heathen vestals, they cast off their fealty to Jehovah. As they united in mirth and feasting, indulgence in wine beclouded their senses and broke down the barriers of self-control. Passion had full sway, and having defiled their consciences by lewdness, they were persuaded to bow down to idols. They offered sacrifice upon heathen altars and participated in the most degrading rites. And that brings us to our 3 discussion questions for this week. 1. Think about the ways in which we Seventh-day Adventists are in the place where ancient Israel was. Think about all that we have been given in contrast to the world around us, and yes, even in contrast to other churches. The question for us then is this: how are we responding to what we've been given? How well are we projecting our wisdom and understanding before the world? 2. But ye that did cleave unto the Lord your God are alive every one of you this day. Again, the subject of the verb did cleave is the people. The Lord won't cleave to us in the sense that he won't force us to himself. Instead, using the sacred gift of free will, we have to choose to cleave to him. Once we make that choice, how do we follow through and cleave to him? And 3. Dwell more on the question at the end of Sunday study. What does it mean to add to or to take away from God's commands? Outside of the obvious, such as the attempted change of the Sabbath, how might something like that happen so subtly we don't even realize what is happening? Inside Story. Our mission story this week is titled, What Kind of Book Is This? It's by 𝐃𝐒 𝐍𝐎𝐓. A stranger handed a Bible to the 12-year-old girl as she walked home from school in Japan. But she wasn't interested and placed the book on a shelf in her bedroom. Later, as she cleaned her room, she saw the Bible on the shelf and felt a strong desire to give it to her 8-year-old brother, Ryotaro. Would you like to read this? She asked. Ryotaro wondered what kind of book she was holding. When he looked more closely, he read the word Bible on the cover. He had seen a Bible at his grandfather's house, and he was curious about what kind of book it might be. Yes, I'd like to read it, he said. The Bible was his. The Bible contained only the New Testament, and he started reading from the beginning, the Gospel of Matthew. Who was Matthew? He thought. As he read, he learned about a man named Jesus who healed many sick people. He realized that Jesus was a great person. When he finished Matthew, he wondered what would happen next, so he started reading the next book, Mark. But the story sounded familiar to what he had just read in Matthew, so he quit halfway through. After that, he read here and there, but he didn't finish any book. He longed to know more about Jesus. His family was not Christian, and he didn't tell them about the longing in his heart. Meanwhile, the Bible became an important part of his life. Inside, he found a page with promises that he could claim. There were promises for when he was sick or having a bad day. Every time he needed peace, he read the promises and felt comforted. With a pencil, he underlined the verses that he liked. When he left the house, he always carried the Bible with him. Although no one ever taught him to pray, when he went on trips with his family, he always prayed, "God, please protect us." When he finished elementary school, he decided to go to Okinawa Santa Cruz Junior High School, a Seventh-day Adventist school that Father and Mother found on the internet. He hoped to learn more about Jesus, and he is. Today, Ryotaro is 12 and living in the boys' dormitory at the school. Not long ago, he announced to his parents that he wanted to be baptized. Ryotaro, whose picture appears on the left here, learned about the Adventist school through the internet. Part of this quarter's 13th Sabbath offering will go to a project to help many Japanese people, especially young people, learn about Jesus through the internet. Thank you for planning a generous offering. This lesson was read by Dr. Percy Harrold for Christian Services for the Blind. Sponsored by the Sabbath School Department and distributed through Hope Channel Australia, this podcast is also redistributed by Hope Channel Germany, Christian Record Services for the Blind, and It Is Written. It is also available on SoundCloud and through multiple podcast distributors, including Apple iTunes. Remember, God is always faithful.